$15.2 million. That's 1 year of revenue, one think tank, one zip code in D.C. The think tank was founded by Apex former research director, and it calls itself independent, but it doesn't lobby Congress. It just tells people who lobby Congress what to say. This is episode 3 of the United States of Israel series. In episode 1, we discuss who funds Congress. $126.9 million, one cycle from FEC filings. And in episode 2, we covered how that money bends the rules, FARA, loopholes, and the double standard. Tonight, one ring further out, past the lobbyists, past the candidates, and past the bundled donations, to the people who tell you what to think about all of it. The think tanks that brief your senators, the campus programs that train the next generation, the media pressure that decides which words your local paper is allowed to use. One ecosystem, same donors, same talking points, and tonight we get the names. Welcome back to What If Unfiltered. Tonight we give you the AIPAC Report 2026. We give it away for free. Bipartisan, source first. Every dollar in tonight's episode is footnoted in there. And it's free at patreon.com/CW/whatifunfiltered.com. Take it, read it, fact check me. That's still the whole point. All right. You know the rules by now, but for anyone walking in cold tonight, we have 3 rules. Rule 1 is, every Republican I name, a Democrat gets named in the same segment. The donor lists tonight are bipartisan. The campus money, bipartisan. The pressure operation is bipartisan, and you'll see it for yourself. And then rule 2, every critique tonight has already been made publicly on the record by Jewish American voices, whether it's Bernie Sanders, Paul Beinart, if not now, the Jewish Voice for Peace, Jewish Currents, several hundred progressive Jewish leaders who signed an open letter against the head of the ADL. And what about me? I'm not making a single argument tonight. I'm simply reading it back to you. And rule 3, every problem I name, I'll tell you what a real alliance, a real public conversation would actually look like. And it's important to note I'm not anti-Israel, but I am anti-blank check. And I'm anti-blank check on the narrative, too. My name is Michael Breslin, Marine vet, former healthcare executive, and now I read nonprofit tax returns for fun. If that's the standard you want from a YouTube creator covering this beat, hit subscribe, hit the bell. The algorithm listens to you, not me. All right, so let's follow the conversation. In order to do so, we need to go back to Washington, D.C. in 1985. The American Israel Public Affairs Committee, AIPAC, has a problem. It's a registered lobby. Lobbies have to disclose, but disclosure is awkward if you're trying to look like a grassroots movement. So AIPAC's research director, Martin Indyke, walks across the street and founds a new organization, and he calls it the Washington Institute for Near East Policy, WINEP. It's officially independent. It's a 501c3. It can't lobby. It can, however, employ former senior officials, brief sitting senators, and then send scholars to testify. Provide the studies that the lobby across the street then waves all around the hill. Per WINEP's own 2022 IRS Form 990, the receipts you can pull for yourself right now off of ProPublica, the Institute reported $15.2 million in contributions for the year, and its executive director, Robert Satloff, was paid $556,934 in total compensation. A 1991 piece in the Washington Report on Middle East Affairs, written by Israeli-American Jewish journalist Andrew Kilgore, laid the whole origin story out in print 35 years ago. The headline read, "An AIPAC image problem." Now, that's not me calling WINEP an AIPAC offshoot. That's the Washington Report on Middle East Affairs in 1991 calling it an AIPAC offshoot. Now meet WINEP's hawkish cousin, the Foundation for Defense of Democracies, FDD. Per FDD IRS filings from 2008 through 2011, which are public, they named 3 donors who together gave nearly $16 million. Bernard Marcus, Home Depot co-founder, $10.7 million. Paul Singer, hedge fund billionaire, $3.6 million. And Sheldon Adelson, Vegas casino magnate, $1.5 million. And if those 3 names sound familiar, it's because they showed up in episode 1. Same donors, different vehicle, same agenda. FTD CEO Mark Dubowitz, who spent 15 years selling maximum pressure Iran policy on every cable news show that would book him, and Responsible Statecraft. That's the John Quincy Adams Society publication, which is not exactly a fringe outlet. Published a long-form piece tracing how Dubowitz's FTD writes the policy briefs at Apex surrogates, then read aloud on the Senate floor. So let's check out the construct. One think tank writes the scripts, the lobby gets it on the floor, and the donors fund both ends. And there's one more, JINSA, the Jewish Institute for National Security of America. Per their 2021 IRS Form 990, $6.3 million in revenue. And of that, 6.19, 98%, came from contributions. CEO Michael Makovsky's total compensation, $664,500. And what does JINSA specialize in? Well, they send American generals on all expense-paid trips to Israel, who then come back, write op-eds, do TV hits, and advise both parties on what qualitative military edge should mean this fiscal year. You have WINEP, FDD, JINSA. Then you have Hudson. You also have AIE's Middle East shop, plus the Israel programs at the Atlantic Council in Brookings. $10 million a year, same circle of donors. That's not a marketplace of ideas. That's a closed circuit pushing Israel first principles, not American first. Now, rule 2, and this isn't my framing, I'm just reading it back to you. In October 2025, Senator Bernie Sanders on Axios' flagship show said the following: AIPAC is an oligarchy composed of billionaires who strive to uphold the status quo. That's from a Jewish American senator, so it can't be anti-Semitism, correct? And he's talking about the donor class that funds the lobby and through their other foundations and other 501c3s, funds the think tanks that brief that lobby's bills. Oligarchy. Not my word. His. And either way, you can't argue that we have an ecosystem that is committed. In fact, let me go one step further. It's embedded in American politics pushing Israel first agendas. And those agendas always seem to have us funding, fighting, and sacrificing our brave men and women into Middle Eastern wars. Now, let's take this even one step further. Let's go to college and let's start to talk about indoctrination. Hillel International, officially the Foundation for Jewish Campus Life, hundreds of campuses, tens of thousands of students. Nice mission statement. But in 2015, Foreign Policy magazine, not a fringe blog, published an investigation, and the actual headline read, How the Israel Lobby Captured Hillel. The reporting traced one donor, Sheldon Adelson, the same Vegas casino magnate from FDD, funneling roughly $3 million a year into Hillel Israel Fellows, 65 fellows placed across U.S. campuses, and their job? To shape the conversation about Israel on campus, full-time, paid by the donor. And in 2016, the Marcus Foundation, Bernie Marcus's family foundation, and our Home Depot guy from FDD, announced a $38 million gift to Hillel, and then another $38 million donation in 2022. Hillel published the press releases themselves, and you could read it on the hillel.org right now. Once again, same donors, different campus. Now the freebie, Birthright Israel. Free 10-day trips to Israel for Jewish young adults, 18 to 26 years old, with the marketing budget the size of a Marvel movie. but it's pitched as private philanthropy. And in 2011, The Forward, a Jewish American newspaper founded all the way back in 1897, reported that the Israeli government under Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu committed $100 million to birthright and then ramping up $40 million a year in direct Israel government funding. So let's stop for a second. Read that one again. A foreign government subsidizing a program that brings young American voters to its country. And to do what? To shape their political views before their first congressional vote. Every other foreign government on earth is required to disclose under FARA. We covered FARA in episode 2, so you know the punchline by now. And now, the heavyweight. The Anti-Defamation League, founded in 1913, its original mission, fight anti-Semitism, honest mission, important mission, and I want to be very clear on that. But slow down and follow the money. ADL's audited consolidated financial statements for fiscal year 2024, public on their own website, total operating revenue, ADL plus the ADL Foundation, roughly $170 million. CEO Jonathan Greenblatt's total compensation split across the two entities, about $1.2 million. And then in May of 22, Greenblatt steps on stage at the ADL's virtual national leadership summit and declares, quote, anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism, end quote. And it's all available on ADL's own website. The New Yorker covered the speech, and in one short sentence, the head of America's most prominent Jewish civil rights organization redefined criticism of a foreign government's policies as bigotry against an American religious minority, and that's not a small move. That's a total category collapse. Talk about moving the goalposts. And here's where Rule 2 kicks in hard. Within weeks, several hundred progressive Jewish leaders, rabbis, professors, organizers, all signed an open letter denouncing Greenblatt's framing. The group Jew for Racial and Economic Justice published it. The letter is still on their site. Now we move to January of 24. The press director of If Not Now, Matan Arad Neiman, on the record, quote, by continuously prioritizing, criminalizing pro-Palestinian activism over combating anti-Semitism, the ADL has discredited itself. End of quote. This from the press director of a Jewish American activist organization. And then the ADL classified both the Jewish Voice for Peace and the If Not Now protest as anti-Semitic. Jewish Voice for Peace, the actual Jewish organization, got labeled anti-Semitic by the ADL. And a staffer reportedly quit. In these times ran the headline, and I'm reading directly, the ADL is making it less safe to be a progressive Jew. Dude, that's not me. That's in these times. I think we got to remember that Jewish American community is not monolithic. The ADL's framing is contested by Jewish Americans in writing and on the record. But that's the internal debate that gets erased when one organization's spokesman becomes the only voice Washington listens to. But if you thought that was all, bless your heart. Now the part that explains why your local newsroom keeps using the same 5 speeches. CAMERA, which stands for Committee for Accuracy in Middle East Reporting and Analysis. Its public mission? To monitor media bias. And sounds reasonable, but you got to read the receipts. Per the Misbar Media Accountability Investigation published in November of 2024, and CAMERA's own publicly available IRS findings between 2017 and 2019, CAMERA pulled in over $4 million in grants. Single biggest donor on the disclosed list? Seth Klarman, Boston hedge fund manager, $1.5 million plus. But what's CAMERA's job? Day to day, it emails editors, calls publishers, generates complaint campaigns, pressures newsrooms to change a word here, drop a sentence there, and kill a piece if it doesn't like it if it can. Now, let me give you an example. In November 7th of 23, the Associated Press, the AP, the wire service that supplies your local paper, publishes a piece referencing the Palestinian right of return as established under international law, which is per multiple UN resolutions. Camera pressures the AP and the line gets removed. That's not opinion. That's the Misbar investigation with timestamps. But somehow it gets even weirder. In 2008, an internal camera email got leaked. The plan: recruit pro-Israel volunteers, train them as Wikipedia editors, get a few of them elected to administrator status, and then use that admin status to suppress pro-Palestinian editors and edits. Wikipedia caught it, banned the participants, documented the entire scheme in Camera's own Wikipedia entry. And if you don't believe us, you can read it right now on their Wikipedia page. It's underneath the section labeled Camera Campaign at Wikipedia. Camera, a pressure group with multi-million-dollar funding, ran a documented operation to take over editorial control on one of the largest reference sites on Earth over a foreign policy debate. And the consequences? They're still operating. Same donors, bigger budget, and the ADL is not done spreading their tentacles. The ADL plays the media too. And here, Rule 2 practically writes itself. Peter Beinart, American Jewish journalist, former editor of the New Republic, published a long-form analysis arguing the situation in Israel-Palestine had crossed into apartheid territory. The ADL, in a New York Times letter, called him an anti-Semite. A Jewish American journalist is labeled an anti-Semite, and it makes you ask, does that label even hold any real meaning anymore? The Arab Center D.C. covered the back and forth in detail. The fallout in Beinart's words and others ran for months. Let's slow this down and make sure it sinks in. We have a premier American civil rights organization calling a prominent American Jewish journalist an anti-Semite for an argument that Jewish Israeli historians, Jewish Israeli newspapers, and 3 Israeli human rights organizations already made in print. That's not protecting Jewish Americans. That's policing them. That's attacking them. That's an attempt to cancel them. So here's the frame. Think tanks set what's credible. Campus programs set what's mainstream. Media pressure groups set what's punishable. Same donors funding all 3 rings. Same handful of billionaires from episode 1. Same handle from FDD. Same handle from Hillel. Same handle from Camera. When the same 5 names fund the lobbyists, the candidates, the think tanks, the campus programs, and the media monitors, you no longer have a public conversation. You have a closed loop with the sales tax. And who pays that sales tax? We pay the sales tax as part of the conversation that never happens out loud. Let's address Rule 3. Every problem we discuss, what a healthy version may look like. Because what we have right now isn't a debate. It's a vetted message track delivered through 3 people's mouths. So here's what a real public conversation about U.S.-Israel policy would look like. 4 standards, same ones we would use for every other lobby. 1, transparent funding. Every think tank publishing on this issue discloses its top donors on the first page of every report. Same rules every other policy think tank follows, so there's no carve-out for any one country. 2, a real range of voices. Bernie Sanders, Peter Beinart, Jewish Currents. If not now, in these times, these are all Jewish American voices and Jewish American publications on the record making the same arguments that I'm sharing with you tonight. They get the same airtime Apex surrogates get. So the conversation isn't honest. 3, there's no bigotry shield. Criticizing a lobby is not bigotry against the people the lobby claims to represent. Criticizing a foreign government's policies is not bigotry against an American religious minority. These are different categories. Collapsing them protects power. It does not protect Jewish Americans. 4, there's no carve-outs from disclosure. If any other foreign government funded campus tours for American voters, paid retired generals to write op-eds, and bankrolled media pressure operations to shape your local newspaper and news force, we call it influence operations. We covered on the first page, we would require federal registration, so same rules or no rules. Honest debate is not anti-Semitism. Hidden donors are not philanthropy. And one organization spokesperson does not speak for an entire people. That distinction between criticizing a lobby and criticizing a community is a distinction Washington refuses to draw. And why, you ask? Because drawing it would cost them the money, a lot of money. Well, we just drew it. So here's what I need from you. 1, download the APAC Report 2026, free at patreon.com/CW/whatifunfiltered.com. Every dollar in tonight's episode is footnoted in there with receipts. There's no paywall. 2, if you want to go a level deeper, the Patreon Patriot tier, $12 a month, gives you all the work and document version of the report, access to all congressional and state scorecards, as well as chamber reports, and early access to future episodes. Patreon, that's where the work gets funded. By you, not the machine. 3, share this episode with one person who keeps getting told that asking these questions is bigotry. Send it. Watch the 3 rules at the top with them. That's how the conversation begins to break open. 535 members of Congress, 50 governors, 1 president, 586 employees who work for you, 1 think tank ecosystem, 1 campus pipeline, 1 media pressure machine telling you what you're allowed to think about all of them. That free pass stops now. That includes the free pass on the conversation. Next week, the younger generation pivot, polling, campus shift, and why people writing the checks are beginning to panic. And of course, we'll bring all the receipts. I'm Michael Breslin, Marine Corps veteran. This has been What If Unfiltered. Stay strong, stay awake, and until next week, stay unfiltered.
These conversations don't end when the episode does. They carry forward into how we think, how we speak, and how we engage the world around us. Here, we don't demand agreement. We ask for honesty. We don't chase outrage. We pursue clarity. Because better questions shape better conversations, and better conversations shape better outcomes for our families, our communities, and our country. If this episode sharpened your thinking, share it, continue the conversation, and let's get unfiltered. Until next time, this is What If Unfiltered, where conviction is rooted in faith, guided by tradition, and focused on the future.